I did today.
You finally did. Yeah. It's a shame for the open. Although, I've been trying to avoid it a lot, and I drove through it today, and it wasn't bad. I went up, and I was like, I was amazed of all the parking things that were going on, or like people's homes, yeah. Like they had signs up like, big film
I'd like to call the Township North Huntington Board of Commissioners work session meeting for Thursday, June 12th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Roll call, Manager Falk.
Commissioner Hempel.
Here.
Commissioner Atwood.
Here.
Commissioner Gray.
Here.
Commissioner Zona.
Here.
Commissioner Bevan.
Here.
Commissioner Goss.
Here.
President Hagus.
Here, can everyone please stand for If any residents would like to speak tonight, could you please sign the book at the podium? Thank you. First resident is Matt. If you could come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Matt Beal. I live at 12500 Adams Drive. I bring the attention to you as some we've had email communication about the flooding that occurs in Jacktown Acres Park. Just wanted to know what the township's reasoning of why this occurs and any type of corrective actions will be taken to prevent this from happening again. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Our next resident is Michael. If you could come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Michael Peschok, 12480 Adams Drive. I'm here this evening to talk about the water runoff in our township, specifically the water that passes through Jacktown Acres. Directly behind our property is the Jacktown Acres Park, and there's a stream that runs next to it. That portion of the stream has never breached or overflowed since I moved into my property in 2003. However, due to upstream issues, the grading of the neighborhood properties, my backyard has flooded multiple times over the years. Water has breached because the streams are not cleaned. The debris and culverts on Abrams Drive redirected water through backyards, and water has breached in other backyards at the back of Roth, across from the park. Then it redirects it back through backyards again on Roth and Adams and comes down through the yards. During the storm last Friday, June 6th, the water swelled, breached in the backyard on Roth Drive, crossed the street and continued through the backyards in Roth and Adams. Since my yard is about 8 inches lower than downstream neighbor, water remains in my yard and rises. Water also goes through the park and other properties downstream. These backyards and parks should be regraded so that the drainage can handle the water and direct it out of our yards, or at least into some type of diversion so it goes back to the stream, not towards the housing. If we follow the water entering Jacktown Acres, we see it comes from multiple places. Water comes down the Long Run waterway through Jacktown Acres. We get water runoff from Jacktown Acres, Ridge Road, Robbins Station. We have water that comes from Mark Haven Apartments through Robbins Station at the other end of Jacktown, center, north, all the way back to Clay Pike. If we follow it back up a little further, you get to Lions Park, where we have a detention pond, which is really an overflow pond. You have a stream to the right or to the left that goes up McKee. You got a stream to the right that goes up into the woods and comes down from Guffey, St. Agnes, and parts unknown. Coming up down McKee, you have all the yards and all the runoff from McKee all the way back up to Clay Pike. When we get down to the detention pond, it basically takes a little bit of the water and holds it, but the streams continue to flow. So we're not really stopping the water or trying to mitigate some of it. The township should convert the Lions Park Overflow Detention Pond to be an actual detention pond. This would be accomplished by forcing both streams into the detention pond making the detention pond deep enough to hold several days' worth of runoff, not just the occasional storm, which it wasn't deep enough to hold over the weekend. It also needs to be kept clean of debris so the water can be released in a controlled flow. Saturday, June 7th, I went up and looked at that detention pond. There is so much debris on the Robin Station end that if there is actually a pipe in there that's supposed to take the water slowly, it's so covered in debris, the debris goes up over the walkway, and you can tell that the water just rushed right over the back side of that detention pond. The other issues that we have at Jacktown Acres Park is the underground water runoff piping that was installed underneath the road on the back side of the park that goes from Roth down into the park. Two sections, approximately 20 feet of piping, have been forced downstream after deteriorating, and the ground is opened up. I'm sure you guys are aware that there's a 10-foot hole back there closing the park. The first flooding my family encountered in Jacktown Acres was caused when the Abrams Drive culvert was blocked by landscaping timbers that fell from a neighbor's yard, redirecting the water through yards on Roth and Adams. After that event, properties were reassessed, and many of us are now in a floodplain that costs us over $1,000 each year and affects property resale values. We are in a flood zone because of man-made issues that we're not handling. We should be able to clean a stream, make the water flow, because we're not breaching at normal points. We're breaching because of debris, blocking things, or areas where it should be built up slightly higher, and we're aware of them, but no one's taking action. Our township needs to address the water runoff in Jacktown Acres by regrading properties, correcting the issues to the stream banks so they don't breach, cleaning debris from our waterways, not just passing the buck to the closest resident, and correcting the detention pond at Lions Park. Making these corrections would help relieve the water issues in Jacktown Acres and downstream areas like Park Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Your next resident's Alan. You could just come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Alan Silverio. I live at 149 Skellytown Road, Irwin, PA. I'm here regarding the resolution for procedures for township-owned land for lease. I just want to start off by asking, why is a resolution being proposed instead of the ordinance just requested by Commissioner Gray? I see some potential risks of using a resolution instead of the ordinance at this point. To start out, there's weaker legal standing. A resolution does not have binding legal force like in an ordinance. A developer could argue that procedures are advisory, not mandatory, and may not be enforceable in court. It's easier to bypass or change. The township board could waive or revise procedures with a simple vote, even mid-process. This opens the door to inconsistent or politically motivated decisions. There's also no enforcement mechanism. If a developer fails to meet expectations, for example, falling behind on improvements or to build improvements, there's no legal consequences built into the resolution. A lease agreement may be weak with an ordinance backing the process, which ultimately this can reduce public transparency. Ordinances require formal public notice and hearings. Resolutions can be passed with little public awareness. For major land lease, this undermines public trust and community oversight. There are a few pieces of feedback I have regarding the resolution. It has some lack of detail. There's no clear criteria for evaluating the proposals beyond the basic submission list. There's no specific due diligence requirements such as environmental or traffic studies or operating plans, etc. No defined standards for public access, usage, or measurable community benefit. There are also some weak improvement expectations. The policy does not require a minimum level of investment, construction timeline, or list of guaranteed public improvements. This could allow underdeveloped or loosely defined proposals to advance. With this current resolution, I believe there's a risk of low return without financial benchmarks or public benefit thresholds. High-value public land could be leased with minimal community gain. Bottom line with this is, while the resolution attempts to encourage transparency and public input, it lacks enforcement mechanisms in detail to ensure proposals are viable, beneficial, and accountable. I have a list of recommendations for curating an ordinance. I will forward this to all commissioners as well as Mr. Falk via email, probably by the end of the evening. So the recommendations I have for a future lease template ordinance, I think we should focus on strengthening long financial terms, establish market-based rent with annual escalators, include participation in revenue or a percentage of gross rents clause, and require security deposits or performance bonds. I think a mandatory due diligence package should be introduced. Preconditions acceptance of proposals should be based on a detailed business plan, identified funding sources, preliminary site and traffic studies, a phase 1 environmental study assessment, an ESA, financial statements or proof of financing, clear construction timelines, and phasing plans. There should be a contingency and approval period with firm deadlines, approval acquisitions, environmental title reviews, and contingency period extensions, I suggest be required by board approval. Also, the township's legal and financial interests should be protected, prohibit unilateral tenant assignment, mortgage rights, require the tenant to maintain insurance through the construction and operations, name the township as additional insured, and the township should have recourse for default. Also, public access and use need to be ensured. Public amenities like parks and trails must be clearly defined in phasing and site plans. Require minimum hours of public access or co-use rights. Ensure free or discounted use by the township for community events. The ordinance really should stress transparency and public engagement. Should follow an adopted lease procedures resolution. All proposals should undergo a 60-day review and a 90-day public comment period. And costs for these hearings and notices should be borne by the proposer. In closing, I believe all proposals should be considered simultaneously to avoid favoritism or non-competitive decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next resident's Leah. If you could come up to the podium and say your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Leah McGee, 149 Skellytown Road. Just a couple comments or questions on the agenda for tonight. The first one I had was about the business license, the permit ordinance. I know it was, like last month, it was called a nuisance ordinance. One thing I personally was struggling with was that it doesn't have the reference to the gross tax receipts, or the gross receipts tax ordinance, which is what actually is the ordinance where you have to apply for the permit. I think it'd help make clarity for people if you had that reference in the ordinance, so they know that those two, those both refer to each other, so you know where to go to find the information about the actually purchasing the permit. So it's just a suggestion. I know you made some updates to it. The other one was about the resolution. So there was a vote in order to come forth with an ordinance for the land lease, and the draft on the agenda was for a resolution. And so a lot of what my husband just spoke about, I agree with. As well as there was a couple of things that I know Commissioner Hempel, you had asked that it also included information in there that for-profit institutions could not lease land. There was nothing in the resolution about that. And Commissioner Gray asked that it included not, that private developers could not lease land, and that was also not in there. And that there would be an exclusion where you could still lease land for utilities or gas rights, et cetera, and that was also not in there. And so I just didn't know if there was something that happened. I didn't recall anything that happened in public where you talked about changing it from an ordinance to a resolution. But if you could just provide some background on why that was, the vote was for an ordinance, but it came out as a resolution. The final thing I just was wondering about, I was looking at the Westmoreland City VFD extension lease, and I wasn't sure, that seemed like an amendment to me when I was reading it, or it was a lease extension, but it wasn't real clear what it was referring to. And so if you guys can just elaborate when you discuss what that actually is. It says site field, but it'd be helpful to have the master, if there's a master agreement in the agenda, so that you can easily refer back to see what the extension is referring to as well. That's all, thank you.
Thanks. And our last resident's Nick, if you could come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Nick and I live in North Huntington Township. Good evening, Commissioners. With the deadline for resolution quickly approaching, I stand before you once more, not out of frustration, but with hope that this time truth and accountability will be prioritized. I bring with me a series of documented facts, records that demonstrate without question that my family has been severely mistreated by the very system designed to protect us. Let me begin with an email dated November 11th from Mr. Harry Falk in response to a formal complaint I submitted. He stated the following: after investigating your allegations of the North Huntington Police Department violating the advanced crash investigation and crash reconstruction policy, we have determined that no policy violations were found. But the facts say otherwise. What I hold next is an affidavit of probable cause. It states that on July 25th, 2024, Officer Lohr, Badge 91 of the North Huntington Township Police Department, contacted Trooper Jordan Scholas regarding the crash. According to his sworn affidavit, he was told by Officer Lohr a 2013 Chrysler 300 operated by Nolan Mullen collided with a 2019 Ford operated by Kathleen Morscheid. The document states clearly, during the collision, Morscheid sustained life-threatening injuries. The crash occurred on July 7th, yet a crash investigator was not contacted until 18 days later. Now let's look at Section D, subsection 1 of the North Huntington Township Police Department's 411 Crash and Crash Report Directives. It reads, whenever an officer investigates a crash involving fatal injuries or injuries that may become fatal, and criminal prosecution may result, such as the death of a passenger or pedestrian, the officer in charge will request a member of the crash investigation unit to assist with collecting evidence and conducting a thorough investigation. Despite this clear policy, Lieutenant of Administration Gregory Arendez, badge number 58, never called a member of the crash investigation unit to the scene, despite having 2 officers to call, one of them, Officer Bolden, sitting in this room tonight. On July 13th, 6 days after the crash, Officer Ted Kukich, badge number 48, one of 2 members listed with the North Huntington Police Department, CIU, made the very first contact with our family. He came to our home and explained several alarming failures. He admitted that the defendant's vehicle was released before evidence could be gathered. He also disclosed that no field sobriety test was administered and that the defendant was permitted to leave the scene with his father. When I raised these concerns, both Lieutenant Arendez and Chief Rizzo, badge number 18, denied Officer Kukich was a part of the crash investigation unit. But here I have documentation from the township's own website identifying Kukich as a member of that very unit. And when that narrative failed, they claimed he lacked proper certification. That claim is also false. I hold in my hands a certificate issued by the Pennsylvania State Police showing that Officer Kukich is not only certified, but holds a Level 3 crash certificate on scene collision investigation. Despite my efforts to get clarity and accountability, I was repeatedly met with threats, harassment, and outright violations of my constitutional rights, and still I continue to press forward. Eventually, we received the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Crash Report, something that by law should be completed within 15 days. This report was not generated until November 8th, 124 days later. More troubling, one of the 3 key witnesses was omitted. I later learned that there was a 4th witness at the scene who saw a gun. This individual not only called 911, but cut Katie's seatbelt to pull her from the car. This man attempted to provide a statement, but was told by officers it would not be necessary. This man attempted to provide a statement. They took his number and to this day have not followed up. I'd also like to revisit Mr. Falk. On August 16th, I submitted a right to know request under law. I was to receive a response within 5 business days. Instead, I received a reply on September 3rd seeking 30-day extension, an action clearly in violation with the Pennsylvania right to know law. Only one of many you have committed over the months. These delays are unacceptable and cannot be overlooked. I must also address a cease and desist letter I received from Solicitor Dice on September 26th. It warned that continued inquiries into the crash would result in legal consequences, criminal and or civil. The very next morning on September 27th, I received an email from Harry Falk relaying a message from Chief Rizzo. The North Huntington Township Police Department will no longer discuss the July 7th crash with you. All future communications will be with Ms. Morscheid directly. Do not contact this department regarding this investigation. These are just 2 examples of the many tactics used to silence and intimidate me in my pursuit of justice. And let me be very clear. While Chief Rizzo may argue that he has no legal obligation to speak with me, as the father of a minor victim involved in this crash, I do have every legal and moral right to be informed and involved. In closing, I urge Mr. Gray, who publicly admitted at the last meeting that his failure to second Commissioner Gasp's motion was a mistake. To correct that mistake tonight, I ask that Commissioner Gasp be allowed to reintroduce the motion, confidently knowing he has your second, so that this body may finally vote transparently on the record as to why this matter continues to be brushed aside. My family deserves honesty, justice, and closure. This community deserves leadership marked by accountability and transparency. I have all the documentation I referenced, as well as much, much more. If anybody cares to change course, I do not want to harm this township. A civil RICO case is treble damages, and it will not be covered by the insurance policy. This could turn into $30, $50, $60 million very quickly. My father lives here. I grew up here. I sat in an English class, Mr. Weaver, 6th grade, when terrorists ran planes into this country. My father was in Washington on that day, and my aunt was in New York City. I love this country. I love this township. I would appreciate all those who want resolution. Yes, there's going to be financial consequences, but it does not have to bankrupt this township. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other resident that would like to speak tonight that didn't get a chance to? All right. Not seeing anything. Response assistant input. I believe Matt and Michael both talked about flooding off of Adams Drive. I know that's one of our areas we have trouble with. I don't know if we can maybe reach out to Westmoreland Conservation District, revisit that. I know we've been down that road before, but maybe they could help us take a look and see if there's any other improvements that we haven't made that we could maybe take a look at.
If I may, President, back in 2022, I believe it was 2022, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was performing a study of that whole watershed. And we just reached out to them this past week to try to get an update on that. We're having some trouble because I guess the person that was doing it moved on. So we are making contact with them to try to see where they're at on their study. That study will provide us with the recommendations on what to do with that watershed along that creek. But, you know, we were down there this week looking at the park, talking about it, and we may recommend, you know, at a later date to probably get rid of that park because it's just, it's constantly being flooded, turn it into some type of stormwater management for that area down there. But again, every time it rains, it gets flooded. We have to go down there, clean up the mulch, put the mulch back, pick up the garbage cans, and it's always saturated. So we're looking to see what we can do down there.
Any other board comments on flooding down Jacktown Acres?
Not to dispel what Matt and Mike said, that storm that came through was amazing. Was that on the 100-year plane of a storm? I noticed our storms are getting worse. I think we could all probably attest to that, but I was just curious, was that one of the granddaddies of storms?
Yeah, that was actually closer to a 500-year storm. We received over 4 inches of rain Friday evening into Saturday.
Wow, okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks.
I believe Alan and Aaliyah both brought comments on agenda items. If the board's okay, we could address them at that time. Uh, Any other response to public input?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and, I think, more towards the end, redress Mr. Carrozza's, his remarks, so.
All right.
Thank you for that, but just for the record, I will be asking.
All right. Thank you. Work session discussion topics, Manager Falk.
Sure. Item number one is the Wiggins settlement agreement that you had a chance to review. Again, this is that wall between the Haliacs and the Wiggins. They were seeking the board for some assistance, so we entered it to hold the grading permit, because we have a grading permit that we have not released yet until that wall gets fixed, because there has to be a swale on the other side of that wall to protect that wall from collapsing onto their yard. So they did settle, and this is the settlement agreement. Are there any questions about that? And again, this was no cost to the township except for staff time. Item number two is the copy of the Keystone's collection agreement to collect current and delinquent business privilege and mercantile taxes. If you recall, our tax collector currently collects these taxes. We'll be getting a new tax collector next year. And we want to take that out of their hands and put it with Keystone Collections. They did submit a proposal. They came back with a better proposal the second time around of the 2% plus postage on current privilege and 6% collected on the delinquent. And if you recall, they stated that if a House bill goes through eventually, that the cost for the delinquent taxes can be passed on to the business owner, not by the township at a later date, if that House bill ever gets approved. But again, what we believe is by doing this, Keystone has a better pool to collect the data to make sure that all the businesses are paying their fair share of business taxes. And also, our department, our community development department, will work alongside with them to make sure that those businesses do have their current occupancy, because we did find that throughout the couple years here that there were some businesses that didn't have an occupancy and were not paying their business privilege tax. So,
Do we have something in this for whenever that House bill does go in that we can revisit and pass that 6%?
yeah, we can always amend the agreement if that ever happens. Is there any questions you want me to take back to them? They weren't, member of Keystone was not able to make it here tonight. Or is the board okay with this agreement? We can put it on the agenda next week and get the ball rolling.
Yep.
Are there any questions? Okay. Moving on, this is the draft of the establishing rules and regulations for business license permit, basically the nuisance ordinance for those businesses. Under section 4 of a revocation of a business license, we summarized it to illegal drug activity upon conviction, prostitution upon conviction, 3 police calls within a 6-month period, or 3 code violations within a 6-month period. Again, this is just the draft ordinance that the second time around with the board comments. Are there any board comments on any changes? Or they like to see something else or different?
Mr. Gray, did you want to say
Go
something?
ahead. I'm good.
So, I think this guy is completely in favor of protecting our citizens from just anything on criminal activity. I think that goes without being said. But I also want to tread carefully and lightly. I want to make sure that we have steps and procedures in place so as to not, if we had a problem with a business and thought we don't want to be targeting, we have to have some very specific guidelines. I just don't, I worry that somebody could say, hey, you know what, I don't care for that business, I don't want them around. Now granted, I'm not talking like bad businesses, and I'm just going to leave it at that kind of word. I think you guys can fill in the blank. anymore these days. You go, my God, you have to be so careful what you say. Geez, you're always upsetting somebody. And it was like, you know, but I'm all for the sanctity and the protection. I said it last month, I think, and I'm going to say it this month. I wish this was Mayberry, 1962. You know, I'd love to go back to those days, although I wasn't born, but I did watch the TV show and I did learn a lot from Mayberry, right? Man, that was good TV. I know I'm getting off the topic, but what the heck. But I just want to make sure that we're dotting our i's, crossing our t's, and making sure that there's no personal vendettas, and I think a little bit of a deeper resolution, a little deeper on statements, just so we can make sure. I think that's all I'm going to say about that. Mr. Gray?
I agree with you. First of all, we already have a ordinance that regulates businesses, rules in businesses, right?
To an extent, yes.
To an extent. It's not this,
Right.
but it has a lot of this in it, right?
It does
Well,
not have A, B, and C, and D in it.
A, B,
I don't believe
C,
so.
and D in section 4?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. Those are the issues I have with it, A, B, C, and D. They're kind of vague when they say illegal drug activity upon conviction. Upon conviction of who? The business owner? A patron? I know we were talking patrons before. Same thing, the drug activity, the prostitution, and then 3 police calls within a 6-month period. Police calls about what? That they got robbed? They got broken into? I just don't see any specifics in this, and I believe it's all very subjective that could be used, as Commissioner Gass said, to pursue a vendetta against a business. I think it's heavy-handed and unclear about the due process, really. So, thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add too, I agree with that. I think my opinion of this would be we want this illegal drug activity, any of these issues to be probably the owner or an employee of that business is what I was looking at, where they're selling drugs, or the owner, whoever's running that business, the owner and his employees is what I would think. Instead of, you can have patrons coming in and doing things, as Eric said, they can come in and do it intentionally to get you in trouble, really. And then, yeah, the 3 police calls, I mean, Walmart would be out of business in 1 week with that, because we're up there 3 times in 1 day, I would think, so. I don't know, that's just my opinion on that, I would think, I would like to see it angled more toward the owner of the business and his employees, or their employees. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. We'll come up with a new draft and present it next month's work session.
Thank you.
One of, Ms. McGee, I think, also said to reference the actual gross receipts section. We could add that in as well.
Okay. All right, moving on to item number 4, resolution for procedures for township-owned land for lease. I strongly feel that a resolution is better than an ordinance, because, you don't want to pigeonhole the future board with an ordinance, and there's really no violation of any crime or any violations of anything being committed. So for the resolution, I just kind of took our experience of what transpired over the course of time. Of course, this is just a draft. You guys can add whatever you want to it, or just go, to something else. But a lot of things that the resident talked about is part of the planning process. A lot of those things are incorporated with the negotiation of the lease. They go in front of the planning commission for a lot of those things to get reviewed. So are there any questions or comments
Yeah.
about this?
Yes. I believe you're right on the planning process. A lot of the things that Mr. Silverio brought up are part of that process, and they would be at the proper time. But my whole goal originally, when I said an ordinance, was to slow the renting down, the consideration of renting or leasing public property down a little bit, to give the public notice that the board was considering doing that. And a resolution can be changed at any meeting, correct?
That is correct, a majority
Okay.
vote, yes.
That was the idea behind an ordinance that would require public advertisement that the board is considering renting or leasing public property, your property, to an entity. Doesn't matter who it is. There could be multiple competitors, developers, or I don't want to say developers, but that would, it couldn't be done at one meeting, basically, is what I was looking for. So we would have to talk about it publicly, say the board's considering renting property or leasing property for, let's say a sports complex, and then make that public announcement, take input from the residents about it, whether we want one or not, and then vote to change the ordinance or repeal the ordinance to allow us to proceed with negotiations and go down that road. So I just don't think a resolution is strong enough.
I'm in
And
agreement with Mr. Gray, only for the sake that I agree it should be up to the residents. And there again, I understand, Mr. Falk, that you had mentioned about holding other boards in the future hostage, but there again, just as Commissioner Gray mentioned, the public would be able to speak to that future board and make those decisions at that time. So I'm in agreement to an ordinance also rather than a resolution.
I might as well throw my 2 cents in there as well. I support Mr. Gray and Mr. Hempel in their words and their actions. I think they spoke very well, and I believe they have the, it's not that anybody doesn't have the better interest of the community. I just think an ordinance would be better, versus what a resolution. But I agree with both gentlemen. Thank you.
And I wouldn't have any problem making it an ordinance either, but I think what you have written here, I mean, I kind of like it. I think it gives plenty of time here. It's a 60-day review process, then a 90-day public inspection where the public has input, and then another 6 months, or a 6-month period after that, if we vote to move forward. I mean, I think it gives enough time limits in there that we're speaking of, but yeah, I don't have a problem making that an ordinance either.
Any other board discussion? All right, I guess Manager Falk, you have some follow-up there, and we can bring something back to the board. Only thing I believe Leah or Alan might have mentioned it. I know I mentioned about before about utilities, maybe have an exclusion if we would have when a gas lease, we're not actually leasing actually physical land, or another utility wanted to lease, that might be excluded from this length of time period.
But there again, when you get into a gas lease, how long did it take us to do Oak Hollow and Braddock's Trail? It took 6 months to a year, I think. I mean,
I think
I don't
Braddock's
think
Trail
we're
was
gonna hold
probably
up
3 or 4
anybody
months, yeah.
in that regards, even with an ordinance.
The other, you also have like cell tower leases. So
Mm-hmm.
in this instance, this is real property versus leasing from a cell tower, but we can definitively separate those things so that we could still allow for the leasing to occur on cell towers, or it was some type of cable lease or something like that, where you're not using real property. where you-
Right.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you. Moving on, item number 5, the lease extension with Westmoreland City Volunteer Fire Department and Relief Association for the park. The lease expired a couple years ago. The Westmoreland City Fire Department and North Huntington Township, the fire department owns the property down there, the park. We maintain it, the ball field, we put playground equipment in there, we insure it. So basically, we're just extending this lease for another 15 years. The previous lease was 15-year lease. Again, it expired a few years ago, and the fire department's interested in renewing it.
So we're leasing their property for a
Yes.
park?
Yes,
Okay.
for free, but we have to maintain it and build yeah.
Any board discussion on that one? That answer your question? All right.
As you know, we have invested in that park. Last year, former Commissioner Stump donated a structure down there, and then we redid the playground with new mulch and everything. So it's beautiful down there. Item number 6 is a mower purchase for the parks. So the parks equipment, the parks department is lacking some good equipment. So this mower, we received the 3 quotes. It's a mower, but it catches the grass. Apparently, all the mowers that we have do not catch the grass, and it's after you're done cutting the grass, you have to blow the grass off. This bags it, just like your house. So, but it's a $15,000 purchase, a capital purchase, and it'll come out of the capital reserve fund. And the guys down there will have a great mower. They've been using a demo model for all of our ballparks, and it's been working out really well and more efficient. If there's any questions, Public Director Huklinski is here to address it for that mower. But as we're on the mower too, if you remember, we did get a grant for a tractor, a mower boom. Back in 2023, we applied and was awarded spring of 2024. However, we have been unable to secure one since then. It's just on a backlog. But we want to put it out for bid, so that way that opens up the ability for us to purchase one. It doesn't have to be a CoStar's vendor. So if a business is not a CoStar, they can put in a price or put in a bid for it. So next week there'll be an action item to advertise for bids for a mower, tractor, and boom for the Public Works Department. If you recall, the current one, last year we rebuilt the engine, or last year, and we had to rent one for the summer. And that's used to cut along the guardrail and the side of the road and everything. Are there any questions about item number 6?
Thank
That's
you,
all I
Manager
have.
Falk. Planning and engineering topics, Director Andrew Kovich.
We have a couple items this month from the Planning Commission. First is subdivision 3 of 2025, Tuscan Hills 8 and 9. This is the subdivision of single-family homes located in Tuscan Hills, Phase 8 and 9. These will be the final 2 phases of the Tuscan Hills development. Phase 8 of this plan will include 19 new homes over 9.824 acres, while Phase 9 will include 38 new lots over 20.729 acres. These 2 phases, you'll see an extension of Antonio Drive, which ends in a cul-de-sac, and the second entrance to the plan that will be coming off of Hometown Wendell Road. The June 2nd, 2025 meeting, the Planning Commission recommended this plan for final approval with a vote of 6-0 with the following conditions. Number 1, the stormwater management, erosion control plans, and NDDS permit must be approved by the Westmoreland Conservation District. Number 2, applicant must receive sewage planning approval from NHTMA and the DEP. Number 3, the applicant will enter into a developer's agreement with the township providing binding for public improvements. Number 4, applicant must acquire a PA HOP for access from Hontown Wendell Road. And number 5, the applicant must address outstanding engineering comments from KU Resources letter dated 6/3 of 2025. Is there any questions with this? Nothing? Okay. Moving on, subdivision 10, 2025, the Wallace subdivision. This is a proposed subdivision located off of Paintertown Road. John Brensel of 14100 Buchanan Road is the applicant. Purpose for the subdivision is to separate the 66.771 acre parcel into 3 separate single-family home lots for estate planning purposes. The first lot, parcel A, which is shaded in blue, will be 16.362 acres. The second lot, parcel B, will also be 16.362 acres. And the third lot, parcel C, which is shaded in yellow, also runs the length of Paintertown Road, will be 34.047 acres. All 3 lots will meet the minimum dimensional requirements in an R1A zoning district. The June 2nd, 2025 meeting, the Planning Commission recommended this plan for approval by a vote of 6-0 with the condition of sewage planning approval from the DEP. Any questions with this one? Moving on to subdivision 11, 2025, Bigelow subdivision. This is a proposed subdivision between 3 adjacent parcels located between Scotch Hill Road number 1 and Scotch Hill Road number 2. Todd Morgan of 2675 Scotch Hill Road number 2 is the applicant and owner of Lot 1B of the previously recorded Morgan & Morgan plan. It's shaded in orange. He is located to, he's looking to add 0.26 acres from 2 adjacent lots, lots 1 and 2, shaded in blue and yellow, fronting the Scotch Hill Road number 1, both owned by Byron and Diane Bigelow. On April 1st, 2025, the zoning hearing board granted a variance to allow the reduction the minimum lot size for lot 1 and 2 of the Bigelow subdivision. The newly created lot number 3 add-on will be appended to the existing Morgan lot, which you see shaded in yellow will be added, or orange will be added to the other orange parcel. The June 2nd, 2025 meeting, the Planning Commission recommended this plan for approval by a vote of 6-0 with no conditions. Any questions about this? Moving on, subdivision 12 of 2025, the Corinco subdivision. This is a proposed subdivision located near the intersection of Guffey Road and Wilshire Drive. Edward Corinco of 2505 Guffey Road is the applicant and owner of the existing 4.97 acre parcel. He's looking to subdivide his existing parcel into 4 lots, 3 of which could be used for future single-family homes. The existing house would remain on lot number 1. A waiver for the road frontage requirement for the 2 rear lots, lots 3 and 4, has been submitted. A 50-foot shared private right-of-way has been proposed in lieu of the frontage. All proposed lots would meet the minimum dimensional requirements in an R3 zoning district. At the June 2nd, 2025 meeting, the Planning Commission recommended this plan for approval by a vote of 4-2 with the condition of sewage planning approval from the DEP and an O&M agreement between lots 3 and 4 for the maintenance of the shared 50-foot right-of-way. The 2 members of the Planning Commission that voted no disagreed with the waiver request on how the 2 rear lots, lots 3 and 4, only abut the 50-foot right-of-way with no actual frontage touching Guffey Road. I did also receive the O&M agreement today from Bob DeGlaw, their surveyor, which goes through the agreement between the lots 3 and 4 that was drawn up by their attorney that would be also part of the deed. Any questions with this one?
What does that agreement cover? Or
So it covers a couple different points. The maintenance of it can be used for the installation of public utilities. They can repair it, maintain it.
is there a minimum condition it has to be maintained in?
Cost allocation of maintenance and major repairs shall be borne equally by and between the owners of lots 3 and 4 in the subdivision. Then it goes on to say, any expenditure over $1,000 or more made without getting the approval of the co-user of the right-of-way shall be paid solely to the owner who contracted for the expenditure.
Right, so that covers the financial end of it, but there
Right.
are no standards that it has to be maintained to. And I was at that meeting,
Right.
and the two people that voted no said that they had interpreted the ordinance a particular way for 30 years, and then suddenly are changing their interpretation. And I know from being on the board for quite a while that flag lots, this is a flag lot, or a pain, to say it nicely, because you have to deal with waste management, going back a private lane, which they won't do. You have to have lots 3 and 4 put their garbage out on the main road. There's no conditions in that, on that 50-foot private right-of-way that says it has to be maintained to a minimum 10 width length, gravelled, anything. I just think this is gonna be a problem.
Yeah, you are correct. I mean, it doesn't say that they have to put a township road on that 50-foot private right-of-way. It
Right.
could be an alley.
And then somebody said, well, with a 50-foot right-of-way, you could put a township road on. Yeah,
Right.
you could, but who's going to pay for it? Not the township, and most likely not the 3 lot owners or 4 lot owners.
Yeah.
Build it to township standards and build a cul-de-sac at the end of it to turn around in. I just think it's gonna be a problem.
If I'm not mistaken, the SAUDA allows for 1 flag lot to be back there, not 2, correct?
Correct, yeah, but these are not technically flag lots by the ordinance or by the SAUDO. They're sharing the 50-foot private right-of-way. A flag lot would actually, that 50-foot private right-of-way would be connected to one of those 2 lots, but it's not actually connected to either lot 3 or 4.
So that was a workaround by the
It was a workaround, and it's ambiguity in the ordinance, and it works, but, you know, it's up to the board, you know, if they like this idea or not, I guess.
I think I would be comfortable, I would agree with Rich that I'm not a big fan of flag lots, period, but let alone 2 lots off of the private alley, so I don't think I would be in favor of supporting this.
And again, this approval would come with that waiver approval of every lot must abut a public road. So that's a big one. I don't like this. It's not ideal. It's just they're trying to squeeze too many lots into one area.
Yeah, and you really allowed 1 flag lot, you know, per subdivision. The original proposal had 2 flag lots, 1 on each side of that, 1 coming down lot 1 and 1 coming down lot 2. You know, 2 flag lots, well, you're not allowed it, but we wouldn't want two driveway. I mean, you're clogging that whole thing up with a bunch of driveways there too, so that wasn't gonna fly.
And then it's my understanding that their surveyor actually had an alternate plan, right? But
He did, yeah.
didn't
yeah.
present it because they said, okay.
Yeah, this is the plan that the homeowner would like to see, or the property owner would like to see. The alternate plan would be to turn that 50-foot private right-of-way into a flag lot and just combine lots 3 and 4 together, and just have 1 big lot in the back with that flag accessing it. So there is, yeah, another option there for them. Might not be what they want, but it's.
Right.
Any other board discussion or questions?
Okay, next, site plan 03 of 2025, sheets on Carpenter Lane. Major land development at the intersection of Carpenter Lane and State Route 30. Robert Humey is the applicant and owner of the 3 parcels totaling 1.86 acres where the current Sheets sits. Sheets Inc. is also listed as the co-applicant in this project. Sheets Inc. plans to completely demolish the existing structure, and they will rebuild a new store with slightly different orientation as well as a drive-through window. The June 2nd, 2025 meeting, the Planning Commission recommended this for final approval by a vote of 6-0 with the following conditions. Number 1, the stormwater management, erosion control plans and NPDS permit must meet and be approved by the Westmoreland Conservation District. Number 2, stormwater O&M agreement with the township must be signed and recorded. Number 3, the applicant will enter in a developer's agreement with the township and provide bonding for public improvements. Number 4, the applicant will provide documentation of existing access easements between the properties. Number 5, the applicant will provide elevations per company standards. And number 6, the applicant must address a few minor outstanding engineering comments from KE Resources letter dated May 23rd of 2025. Is there any questions with this? They are eliminating one section of pumps. They're only going to have one set of pumps now. You can see the underground stormwater tank is going to be located at the corner of Carpenter and Route 30. Landscaping's, some of the trees are going to stay the same. A lot of it's going to stay the same on how it is. I believe that's it. Does anybody have any questions with this? And finally, the site plan 04-2025, the Jim Shorkey Ford Pro. KE Resources determines the submission did not have enough material for the preliminary plan review, so the applicant requested a tabling it until July's Planning Commission meeting. The June 2nd meeting, the Planning Commission voted to table this application 7-0 until the July 7th meeting, so we will not be discussing that one tonight. That's all I have.
Right, thank you. Any further board comments?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and, at this time, I'd like to bring up what Mr. Croza had brought up. There is something called mitigation. And I'm going to ask the board for a second time to please let us entertain the fact of speaking with Mr. Croza, publicly or privately, this board. I think you guys should, I think you know by now, I mean, Mr. Croza really does his homework. And he was typically very prepared, again, yet today, well-spoken. And look, I believe in my heart of hearts, honest to God, Nick has no ill will towards the community. Now, I know some of you guys might say otherwise or feel otherwise, but that Nick doesn't wish to hurt this community. But all he wants, and he seeks the truth, and I'm just asking this board to please give him an opportunity to come to us in a form of a redress, whatever you want to call it, speak to us. Because if Mr. Croza is successful and the bill comes out between 30, 40, 50 million, and I'm not saying that Nick is trying to attempt to hold the township hostage. I know he's not, but he wants what is fair, I believe. I've sat here since the day and heard since the day of the accident and thereafter, and he has concern. Somebody in this township, and here's what upset me, if I may, somebody sent him a very disturbing message that he shared with me. And it was in the form that somebody said, it's too bad somebody didn't finish the job. Now, you know what that meant? That meant that Katie and Jordan would no longer be with us. Whoever that person is that said that message, you ought to just do yourself a favor. Move out of the community. We don't need people like you. I don't want people like you. I don't even want to know people like you that would say such a thing. Right, wrong, or indifferent, if you agree with Mr. Croza or not, we have a nation that was founded on principle that everybody can speak with freedom and liberty and concern for the way that they're being treated. Nick is no different. He has brought his concerns at times. I mean, he's been wonderful with the back research that he's done, and he's been also flowery with his language. And I understand that, and some people go, geez, Eric, yeah, but you know what I call that? That's passion. Okay, it is, it's passion. Nick is one of 3 people in his family, and he almost had 2/3 of his family wiped out. I'm also a man of 3 in my family, my wife and my stepson. And I've said it before, if this was Nick, if I was Nick, and it was Eric standing up there, gee, I tell you, there's days where I know I'd be pretty flowery with my language and passionate about what I'm saying and feeling, and doggone, I just want the freaking truth. And I know that we're saying that we've given you the truth, but you know what? What's the hurt in speaking with Mr. Carrozza? And I'm asking that this board, please let us give Mr. Carrozza an opportunity to speak to us all. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other board comments? No, I would just need a motion.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, not so fast. Sorry, Ron.
Go ahead.
I know. I'm resigning from the board. I've lived in this community for 65 years, since 1965. It's been a great community. I've absolutely loved North Huntingdon. But as I get close to my military retirement, I also feel the desire to move out into the country. I've found some land out in the country in another township, and I duly noted that I want to actively tell Mr. Falk that this is my official statement that I will be leaving this board. I will be resigning my position, and I wish nothing but the very, very best for the township. I want to thank everybody that's ever voted for me and supported me. It's bittersweet. It's tough leaving the family house. Rich, you know what that's like. And there's a lot of great memories as a kid growing in this township and being around a lot of great people. Playing baseball for Pal and going to church at Pennswoods United Methodist Church that's not even there anymore. It's now a home. But, I think the biggest thing is, I lost my dad last year and my sister 20 years ago, and there's a lot of great memories in that house. But we're going to head out into the country for some peace and quiet. Now, I'm not trying to be a wise guy, but I think in that other township I'm allowed chickens. Now, that's not a shot over anybody's bow. Please don't take it as that. But it really isn't. It really isn't. But I'm talking to more and more people about them, and they say they are a pain in the butt to take care of. So I guess we'll have to address that when the issue comes. But, man, I just want to be very gracious up here and thankful for all the wonderful years of growing up in this township and serving with this board and going to the school, Norwood School District, and having the super fantastic friends that I've had and getting to know the fine people of this township. I just really, honest to God, wish everybody the very, very best and success in all that you do, and God's blessings and God's protection upon everybody. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Eric, I'd like to say it's been a pleasure working with you here on the board. We got on together. We went to high school together. We grew up together. We graduated together, and I wish you nothing but luck and wish you the best.
Kind of like that, really enjoyed serving with you, Eric, and we always didn't see eye to eye, but I always said you had the biggest heart in the room. Anyone came with any type of problem, you wanted to help them out. So you'll be missed, buddy. But I'm happy for you.
Eric, I can say that we've had some great conversations on the phone and spiritual conversations, and I will always hold those to me. And there again, I know who you are. You've got, like Commissioner Haga said, you have a great heart, big heart. And I mean this. God bless you. God bless you and your family.
Thank you, brother.
Eric, I also want to say I enjoyed working with you, and the many discussions that we had in various places. We go back a long way, like you always say.
Yeah.
We were neighbors.
Yeah. And he was my lifeguard at Manor East.
Right.
He made
I
sure.
watched over you
Yeah,
for a
he-
long time.
He made sure I didn't drown. I'm grateful for that. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
So it was great serving with you.
Thanks, man.
Wish you the best.
Thanks, man.
I would just like to add that I'll miss you, Eric.
Thanks, friend. Thank you. Sorry for crying. I get a little emotional sometimes. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Discussion. All those in favor by state and I.
aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Meeting adjourned at 8:05. You don't have anything for executive session? You don't have anything for executive session? All right. Yeah. Yep. Yes, sir.
Oh, Harry went that way. Who are you?
I was gonna ask them, when is the board gonna advertise, but I didn't hear a date for resignation.
We'll have to get his written
Oh,
statement.
it has to be written.
Well, we'll have to get a written statement from him.
Oh, okay, as
With the
opposed to
resignation date.
And it could end up being on actually
Yeah.
next
agenda
week.
for next
exactly.
Yeah,
action. Oh,
that would be fine.
Yeah.
Get the written.